Thank you for being here with me. This week I'm reading from book number 34 in my A Book a Week series, Joseph Campbell's Reflections on the Art of Living. I notice that now when I'm engaging in a desire to be helpful by sharing my routing toward expansion with someone, I first ask myself, why would I want to do that? What assumptions might I be making about the situation right now? And I really try to do a little fact checking with myself about whether I'm making assumptions and if so, what those are. Before I maneuver with that interaction at all. And one thing that I can share about this is that this very contemplation that I'm sharing right now caused me to be quite quiet for a number of years. Those years also involved a lot of difficulty that ushered me toward quiet. And that was for me my what Joseph Campbell references as moving into the forest, moving into the unknown, and trekking our own paths. It was a very quiet time characterized by a lot of pain, physical and psychological. During those years, I engaged with how that felt with a lot of insecurity, a lot of identification with a lack of understanding of anything. Groundlessness became a norm. It felt most days like there was an earthquake under my feet spiritually, and in regard to the my neurological pathways, I think because I was charting new neurological pathways, which is a process that requires a great deal of energy and initiative and novelty. Everything felt unfamiliar, and I was consistently feeling squeezed, and it was only due to the understanding that I would be squeezed no matter what, that I personally was able to engage in the squeeze that ultimately led toward a rebirth that opened into expansion. That constriction involved a lack of intimacy with, a lack of proximity with access to my language centers. I felt like there was a jarring barrier, construction of a barrier between my language centers and my capacity to express. And so there were many reasons at this time that I became quite quiet. And I do feel that I am continuing to strengthen my connection to my language centers. And I notice that I engage with that as a positive thing. I associate it with having to relearn how to speak from a newly discovered center, and what words and what patterning of word form might be appropriate to express from that center. I felt like I had to start fresh. And I noticed that as I was starting fresh, as I was speaking, I was not understood in the way that I might expect. And that brought about a new or an additional contemplation, because then I was ushered to ask myself, what do I expect? Why and how do I expect to be understood? What I know is that the most valuable thing that I have to show is possibility and conviction and joy and warmth and the incredible calm security that has come for me in my collapse into the inevitability of insecurity. That very paradox being my hammock, the fabric that catches me every time I permit myself to fall. We each fall in our own ways. We each have our own hammock and our own fabric that makes that hammock. And we each determine when to fall in our own way, or whether to. And so I know that I cannot chart a course for anyone. and I know that one of the most enriching contemplations I can engage in for my own expansion is the very questioning with myself and of myself about why I might want to do that, why I might be connecting to that desire at that moment, as that is likely some form of resistance within my patterning of samskaras in my own pathway. But what I want to do here, and the initiative that I feel very clear and pure about, is a sharing of the resonance, of the joy that is possible in and with radical acceptance of all that the human condition involves. Without further ado, I'm going to move on to today's readings. Bringing back the gift to integrate it into a rational life is very difficult. It is even more difficult than going down into the underworld. What you have to bring back is something that the world lacks, which is why you went to get it. And lacking it, the world does not know that it needs it. And so, on the return, when you come with your boon for the world and there's no reception, what are you going to do? There are three possible reactions. One answer is to say, to hell with them. I'm going back to the woods. You buy yourself a dog and a pipe and let the weeds grow in the gate. You've come back to the world with your gift, and people look at you with glassy eyes, call you a kook, and so you retreat. This is refusal of the return. The second way is to say, what do they want? You have a skill. You can give them what they want, the commercial way. Then you've created a whole pitch for your expressivity, and what you had before gets lost. You have a public career, and you have renounced the jewel. The third possibility is to try to find some aspect of the domain into which you've come that can receive a little portion of what you have to give. You try to find a means to deliver what you have found as the life boon in terms and in proportions that are proper to the world's ability to receive. It requires a good deal of compassion and patience. Look for cracks in the wall and give only to those who are ready for your jewel. Page 48. Before there are any children, or even before there's a marriage, the crucial question is Is this the gentle heart? Is the person seeking a possession? Or is the person feeling a responsibility to the one with whom the relationship is taking place? If there's no feeling of responsibility, then I think you're in danger. What I'm saying is, not that responsibility constitutes love, but that love without a sense of responsibility is not love. It's taking possession. Are you trying to possess somebody? Or are you in a relationship? Page 62. It takes courage to do what you want. Other people have a lot of plans for you. Nobody wants you to do what you want to do. They want you to go on their trip. But you can do what you want. I did. I went into the woods and read for 5 years. Page 73. The opposite to doing what you think you ought to do is compassion. The one who finds the Grail is symbolic of the one who's come to that place and whose life is of compassion. The one who finds as his motivation the dynamism of his compassion has found the Grail. That means spontaneous recognition of the identity of I and thou. This is the Grail center. Page 75. What kind of action and life experience would be appropriate for one who has had this fulfilling moment of the Grail experience? There are no rules for what you do. Buddha came back and taught for 50 years. To answer such a question, one would have to predict the circumstances of the life that one would enter. Once you've achieved the experience, you have to achieve it the next second, and the next second also. The process of achievement comes in translating the experience of life into that eternal elixir, which is the happy with him forever in heaven, part of the answer to the penny catechism question, why did God make you? The answer I learned was, God made me to know him, to love him, and to serve him in this world, and to be happy with him forever in heaven. Translating that into metaphor, heaven is the symbol of the eternal life that is within you. It's a basic aspect of yourself forever. That's the rapture. 79. The deeper you go, and the closer you get to the final realization, the heavier the resistance. You're coming down to those areas that are the ones that are repressed. And it's that repression system that you have to pass through. And there, of course, is where magical aid is most required. The hero may here discover for the first time that there is everywhere a benign power supporting him in his superhuman passage. On page 119, this is in reference to the Bodhisattva way, the way of the one who's grounded in eternity and moving in the field of time. The field of time is the field of sorrow. All life is sorrowful, and it is. If you try to correct the sorrows, all you do is shift them somewhere else. Life is sorrowful. How do you live with that? You realize the eternal within yourself. You disengage and yet re-engage you. And here's the beautiful formula. Participate with joy in the sorrows of the world. You play the game. It hurts. But you know that you've found the place that is transcendent of injury and fulfillments. You are there. And that's it. Page 131. I think there are 3 states of being. One is the innocent expression of nature. Another is when you pause, analyze, think about it. When you do, nature is not just living, and while you are analyzing, your nature isn't pushing you. Then, having analyzed, there comes a state in which you're able to live as nature again, but with more competence, more control, more flexibility. Page 133. I haven't meditated. And I know I've been afraid that meditation might open up lots of things that could delay the passage of this craft I'm rowing. It is an intentional limitation in order to go in a direction and get there. And I've gotten there, and I know it. Psychic experiences don't necessarily yield this kind of dimension. Each of us has individual capacities. The real trick is knowing the machinery of the boat in which you are crossing the channel. Page 148. The goal of life is to make your heartbeat match the beat of the universe, to match your nature with nature. Page 151. Hell is the concretization of your life experiences, a place where you're stuck, the wasteland. In hell, you're so bound to yourself that grace cannot enter. The problem with hell is that the fire doesn't consume you. The fires of transformation do. I'm going to skip over here to the bottom of page 152. Find a place where there's joy, and the joy will burn out the pain. Page 163. Could God exist if nobody else did? No. That's why gods are very avid for worshippers. If there's nobody to worship them, there are no gods. There are as many gods as there are people thinking about God. When Mrs. Mulligan and the Pope are thinking about God, it is not the same God. In choosing your God, you choose your way of looking at the universe. There are plenty of gods. Choose yours. The God you worship is the God you deserve. Page 199. Anything you do has a still point. When you're in that still point, you can perform maximally. Where are you between two thoughts? If you identify yourself with certain actions, certain achievements and failures, those are thoughts. That's you in the field of time and experience. Where are you otherwise? If it weren't difficult to get to that still point, there wouldn't have to be so much talk about it and all this sitting in postures trying to get there. And then when you get up from the posture, you're right back where you were. So you go back to the posture to see if you can get there again. It's not easy, yet it's very easy. It's like riding a bicycle. You keep falling off until you know how to ride, and then you can't fall off. It's a perspective problem. Running through the field of time is this energy, which is the one energy that is putting itself into all these forms. By identifying with that one energy, you are at the same time identified with the forms coming and going. If you see the two modes, involvement and the still point within you, samsara and nirvana, as separate from each other, you are in a dualistic position. But when you realize that the two are one, you can hold to your still point while engaging. It's the same world experienced in two different ways. You can experience both ways at once. I'm on page 280, and this will be the final passage I'll read from this book. As long as the motifs of desire and loathing are moving you, it is the projecting aspect. You are yourself the Maya maker, and you are the one who opens the revealing power when your attitude is that of the Buddha. When I realized this, it was thrilling to me. I think that art, and this knowledge of what art is, can be the modern Western way to illumination. I'm going to move down here. When you distinguish between good and evil, you've lost the art. Art goes beyond morality. The reach of your compassion is the reach of your art.